We'll start with the question portion. Just a reminder, you have 1 minute for each of these, for the answers for each of these questions. And Ms. Lauder, under the lottery, you have been chosen.
I won?
You won.
Wonderful.
You get to go first for the first question. And the first question is, an article sponsored by the Board of Selectmen is on this year's warrant, which asks voters to appropriate $500,000 for a feasibility study regarding the possible purchase by the town of Aquarian Water Company. How can this expense be justified to taxpayers, and what is your opinion about such a possible purchase?
Well, in a minute, do you have 3 hours? Number one, I think it's wonderful we're going to study it. If you look on, Aquarian has put up a website. There have been 2 previous studies, both of great interest for everyone to read, and they're there in their completeness. The $500,000 I really have a problem with. That's an awful lot of money. That buys any combination of school teachers, firemen, policemen, town workers, DPW workers you can want to put together. What I would do first, I would take a small group of talented people in the town, let them take a very close look at it and all the laws that are around this, and then decide, should we go forward with the study. But I do think it's a good thing to study it.
Thank you.
I didn't get the big red. Wow.
Mr. Riley.
Yes, well, my family-owned business is one that has had a relationship with the Aquarian Water Company for over 50 years. So therefore, I will recuse myself of all conversations and decisions regarding Aquarian. However, I do believe that the 2 selectmen have made the right decision in appointing, or about to appoint, a 5-member citizens committee to look at it, as well as 3 advisory board members as liaisons. And ultimately, the town meeting will make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Mr. Manning.
I attended the meeting last night at the magnificent premises of the middle school, and the presentation was very interesting, especially since I do not use town water. I live on Cushing Street, where we have wells, and we don't have hydrants. Now, if this legislation were enacted, would I be required to pay a tax on services that I don't receive? Secondly, we learn that Hingham, Cohasset, and Hull are also serviced by Aquarian. Since Hingham can tax Hingham citizens, they can't tax Hull or Cohasset citizens. And the DPU doesn't allow differences in rates jurisdictionally.
Thank you. All right, for our next question, we will start with you, Mr. Riley. Another major expenditure that is being considered generally is the possible building of a wastewater treatment plant in South Hingham to handle the flow at the South Shore Park. Such a plant is considered to be a prerequisite to further developing this land into an office park in order to increase tax revenues. How can the town justify this expense to taxpayers? Mr. Riley.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I was so anxious.
I've been a supporter of the South Hingham Overlay District since its inception, and I do believe that in order to take the existing park and make it more vibrant into maybe a biotech industrial park, we need 2 things. We need a source of water, and we also need a sewer system that will handle the waste. That being said, there is going to be a need for a treatment plant, but I also believe at the end of the day, the tax revenue from that newly developed industrial park will surely outweigh the cost of the treatment plant.
Thank you. Mr. Manning.
My understanding was that the cost of the treatment plant would be paid by the users in the industrial park, which I think is a reasonable matter. However, if it were left to the general taxpayers of the town, I do not agree. We are bound by our desires, and our desires should not override common sense. Again, we are under a tremendous tax burden in this town because of expenses that have been occurred both in the school system and generated by other services that aren't essential.
Thank you. Ms. Louder?
I've been following as best I can from the news and any meetings what's going on in the South Industrial Park. I think it's a good thing. I think before we build any new treatment plant, all the different costs should be put on the table, and who is going to pay for them, and are there alternatives? It sounds good, and a new treatment plant may actually help bring in more revenues, but we have an awful lot of empty office space surrounding us. So the probability of filling up a new office park, I think that should be cranked into the equation, but I do think we should look at all the costs.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Manning.
Thank you.
Situate Town Meeting created a new position of a full-time facilities manager at the salary of $85,000 a year to oversee all of their municipal buildings, including the schools. Should Hingham do the same?
Well, I have proposed a town of Hingham that will be in charge of all building operations in town, including the schools, because I believe the school system has failed in maintaining their facilities to standards that should be met. Appointing one individual, I do not think is sufficient, because that person may not have the background, the understanding, and the professional outlook to take charge of this situation, and the appointment may be a result of familiarity with the appointing authority, which is one of the problems that exists in this town of Hingham.
Thank you. Ms. Louder?
A number of cities and towns have formed a facilities management group, the latest of which has been Hanover, and they also got a grant to help them implement this. I would have no problem if we had centralized facilities management. How it would be implemented would have to be looked at, because I think it then separates the politics of the buildings and the construction and the shape of the buildings from the need to expand, as in the case of schools or in the case of a police department. Whether you need the space, you need it for our educational programs that we don't have space for. But you have a group that is designed strictly to look at what shape are the buildings in, what shape are the fields in, so we have no surprises, and we can put, just like you do at home, put money aside to take care of our very expensive and very nice facilities, including our fields that we have in town.
Thank you.
No red.
Mr. Riley?
The idea of a facility manager, it might be a good one, might not be a good idea. However, I wouldn't be against looking at it and creating a committee to look into the feasibility of it. As far as its outcome, I would, hopefully the committee that we put together would give us a reason for it or against it.